we are very much lucky to have you on this meeting. So let's start. What is uh, the aim of dealing about the concept of One Health or knowing about One Health? What is your the basic example to start or to found the One Health lesson?
Thank you for the question, and thanks so much for the opportunity to speak today. And Happy One Health Awareness Month. This is huge. This is huge. So nice to meet you both. It's a pleasure to be here. And so why I started One Health Lessons and what One Health Lessons means, what One Health means to me is ultimately One Health can be said in two different ways. The concept of One Health, in my humble opinion, is the connection between our health, the environment, animals, and plants, right? It's the connection between all of that. Now, the One Health approach is teamwork between people of various disciplines, and we all come together and we try to solve complicated problems that and and that's where I see the One Health concept. To answer your question about One Health Lessons, One Health Lessons is an empower and inspire children.
We have got a lot of information. I hope you gave us wonderful insight. So the other question is, what is the idea of One Health lesson? What is the message behind for the next generation?
The next generation needs to understand how, when we treat the environment, those actions will ultimately play a part in our own health, in our mother's health, in our sister's health, in our child and grandchildren's health, right? Yeah. And so the whole point of One Health Lessons is to get kids to start to think about the world in a whole new way. Open their eyes and show them that we're all connected. And with One Health Lessons, with the learning material there, it's all interactive. And in the past, I was a teacher. I was teaching in schools, and then I became a veterinarian at that point, and that's when I first learned about One Health. I'm like, why didn't I know about this 20 years before? Like, why? It would have changed my life, right? I would have started to see the world in that way since I was, 5, 6. So that's why I started One Health Lessons, to inspire the next generation and beyond to recognize that we're all connected.
Thank you, Deborah. And the other one is because we are in the One Health Week, Awareness Week. So what is the most important concept when we are talking about One Health as the era of pandemic?
I'd say because on everybody's mind right now, it's the pandemic, right? I think the most important thing to drive home is where the virus likely came from, right? Because if we don't address the underlying cause, just like in human medicine, veterinary medicine, if we ignore the underlying cause, are we actually going to solve the problem? Maybe we'll put a Band-Aid on it, but we're not going to prevent future problems, right? And so with these COVID-19 lessons, there are 7 different ones that are age appropriate. They're being translated into right now 78 different languages. And thank you for starting the translations in Amharic. Really appreciate that. I look forward to posting that. I think it'll be so much fun for you to teach it. But ultimately, knowing the source, because if we don't address the source, and I don't mean a lab, I mean how we treat the environment and how we bring animals in close proximity to other animals, how we bring animals that simply don't belong near people, or to bring people near animals where we don't belong, right? And that just creates a natural, unfortunately, a natural high risk environment for disease transmission. I think that's the most important and long-standing sustainable message of the COVID-19 One Health lessons.
Thank you again. The One Health lesson, or the start of One Health lesson, is most importantly focusing to teach the next generation or children about the concept of One Health. So what is currently the One Health lesson globally is doing now?
What is One Health lesson globally? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's a word, because we need that. We are hearing that the One Health lesson is most importantly teaching children to know about the concept of One Health. So currently, what the One Health lesson is doing?
Okay, thank you for that. So One Health Lessons is busy. We are doing a lot, which is wonderful. So I guess it'll make more sense if I start with a little history and then I'll explain how it is now. So onehealthlessons.com was launched on May 1st. As I said, right now there are 78 lessons teaching the COVID-19 but also we just started the 4th class of interns, and really phenomenal. They come from all around the world, from Indonesia to Nigeria to Canada to Turkey to Mexico to Nigeria. I mean, everywhere, right? Which is really wonderful. And the interns have been quite busy. We had, oh, and congratulations, because you guys made runner-up for the global art and music contest. That was an excellent video. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. So of course we raised awareness and got more arts involved because there's some science, technology, engineering, get STEAM involved in the One Health move, building up more curricula to get out there for 2021. Fingers crossed it will be as successful as the COVID-19 lessons. We're also, at least in October of 2020, there was a community event in Kampala, Uganda, at a time when the virus was not much of a concern. And we taught the interns, and we partnered with a nonprofit there. They taught the COVID-19 lesson, but at the same time, they also taught the importance of health in relation to water scarcity, water quality, because that's what the other nonprofit was focused on, water integrity, right? So we partnered up and we gave this amazing community event, and we were expecting adults to be there because there's an 18+ to teach them about One Health, but more importantly, to teach them in a way so that they can then teach their own children and teach their own grandchildren and just spread the message, you know? So we were expecting a team too. So in one community event, we were able to educate multiple generations at the exact same moment. And I thought that was pretty cool. So that's just one example of a lot of things that are happening.
Thank you, Dr. Deborah. And the other one is we are now currently working with in Afrohon, Ethiopia, which I hope you know, the African One Health University Network, and we are the Ethiopian Student One Health Innovation Student Club. So is there anything we can learn from the One Health lesson or any initiatives you know relevant for Ethiopian students? Anything you can tell us?
Yeah, thanks for that. And 2 things I want to say first. Afrohun is amazing. It's an amazing network. I am a huge fan. Number two, particularly your group in Ethiopia, I'm incredibly impressed with everything that you've been doing. I remember seeing videos or at least photos of a banner outside of a van. And then I thought that was incredible. Way to go. Whoever designed that and whoever thought of that, excellent job. Very impressed. And I want to.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would love to see that in more places around the world. So great job with your innovation. Now, how can we in Ethiopia think, yes, of course, Ethiopia is incredibly important. You know, working with your community is incredibly important. But at the same time, how can you broadcast that you are doing so many great things in Ethiopia, right? The way to do that is to join the global One Health education movement that One Health Lessons has started, and that means the Lesson Leaders Program. So I'll go through that in a little bit of detail, but keep in mind there is on the YouTube channel of One Health Lessons a 5-minute video that explains it in more detail. So the Lesson Leaders Program is meant for anybody at the age of 18 or older who cares about One Health. It could be regardless of your major. It could be an economics major. It could be a medical student. It could be an art history major. It doesn't matter to me as long as you value what One Health is. You get trained in English. So for 4 hours, and these are 4 individual separate hours, after a 4-hour training, then you become a certified lesson leader with One Health Lessons. Now those 4 hours, the first hour is orientation. It teaches you how to speak to children who are 15 years old and people who are 6 years old. As you can imagine, there's a big difference between those ages. And so you have to approach them in different ways, right? So that's the first hour. The second hour is to observe a YouTube video and take a quiz. You have to get 100% on that quiz. And the YouTube video is me teaching students live. And these students come from around the world, and I tell you, they're really cute. They're really adorable. The third step, the third hour, is you would observe a live lesson being taught in California. And then the fourth step is you teach your own lesson from onehealthlessons.com to children in California, and you have somebody observing and assisting you where you need it. By the end of that fourth hour, you feel comfortable teaching about One Health to children of various ages, and then you can go home and teach in your own first language, whatever that first language is. If you can teach 5 times in that first language, and we have evidence that you've taught 5 times by the full-time teachers filling out surveys, then you become a One Health Lessons ambassador. At that point, you can teach people in your community who are not bilingual, people in your community who only speak your first language, and that's how you spread the message of One Health. And you bring high quality One Health lessons into the communities and beyond. So that's the Lesson Leaders Program.
Thank you so much. The other one is we do have a lot of One Health initiatives here in Ethiopia. So one is AfroHorn Ethiopia. The other one is Global One Health Initiative is there from the Ohio State University. Horn is there. A lot of One Health initiatives in the university or in different institutes are there. Is there anything about One Health activities beyond the AfroHorn Ethiopia, or other anything that you recommend in order to advance the One Health concept in Ethiopia, maybe starting from the school or to the higher level? Anything that you recommend the best way to advance One Health?
Yeah, thank you for that. Well, 2 things. Because we are talking during One Health Awareness Week or month, there is a calendar of social media suggestions, let's say, of what to talk about throughout the entire month of January. And if you go to the One Health Commission's website, it's listed there. So that's a nice way to inspire more people to talk about One Health on social media. I would say at this point, teaching children about One Health serves multiple purposes. Number one, the child sees a science role model, you, and science doesn't look so foreign at that point, because you and me, we look like normal people. And yes, we're scientists because we're naturally curious, and that's why we went into science. At least that's why I went into science. But it brings science to life when you have somebody who cares about science and who does not have a lab coat on, doesn't have like all these pens in their pocket. We look like normal people. So talking to kids is important for that in that regard. Number two, there was a study that said that the vast majority, like 80% of scientists of all different backgrounds, and when I say scientists, I mean clinicians, I mean engineers, they have figured out by the age of 13 that they wanted to go into science. So think about that power, that influence that you might have on a future life, right? Another thing is it helps the communicator. It helps the guest lecturer, the guest speaker in these classrooms, because we as scientists, it's been a long time since we didn't know the jargon associated with science or the jargon associated with medicine, right? And when you are learning medicine, you also recognize it's a different language, it's a different thought process, it's a lot. But what good are we as clinicians? What good are we as scientists if we can't communicate our discoveries and our knowledge to people who will ultimately make our decisions for funding grant money, for paying the veterinary bills, for making decisions in the human hospital? So we as scientists, we owe it to ourselves to communicate clearly. And the best way to do that is by working with children, because they are honest. They do not let you ramble. they tell you when they're bored. The last thing that's worth mentioning is that I've written a book about science communication, and that should be published in the next few weeks. And I will be posting about it on my LinkedIn page, so just be on the lookout. But it'll give you practical ways to improve science communication, just so that you can get your message, whatever it is, particularly One Health, out into the masses.
Thank you. That's wonderful hearing from you about One Health lesson and a lot of things about the concept of One Health. I do have the last question, and the rest of question will be raised by my friend. We are doing a One Health challenge globally. Here in Ethiopia, we are inviting a lot of cases from different professions, and this is the One Health Challenge 5 with Dr. Deborah. How do you see our national or the global One Health Challenge? So we are aiming that we Ethiopians are a lot of environmental, human, and livestock problems. So we want that the collaboration between professionals must be a good way of improving animal, human, and environmental health. So how do you see how do you look the national One challenge that we are doing now? Is there any comments that we had that can help us to improve this initiative?
This is a tough question. You guys are already doing so much and so many fantastic things. I guess my one thought is to connect with various international student platforms, meaning SOHA, the International Students for One Health Alliance, if you're not already connected with them. Also the Global Health Students Alliance. Also the International Veterinary Students Alliance. Also there's a International Pharmaceutical Students Alliance. And pharmacy students are incredibly, well, I find them fascinating, honestly. They have so much knowledge, and they can apply it both to human medicine, veterinary medicine. They understand the comparative medicine part. They also certainly understand AMR, antimicrobial resistance. But then also thinking about how in your university, how can you engage future educators? Like in your university, what's the section or the sector that works towards teaching people to become grade school teachers? Be friends with those people. Those people are the ones that really affect our future. I would say much more than the political science majors in some ways. So invite them to your One Health events. Invite them to collaborate. If you're going to be, participating in the Lesson Leaders program with One Health Lessons, as we discussed earlier, then have them join in, because ultimately, in order to graduate, they need to have a certain number of hours in the classroom. And this might be a really nice way to get them involved. And so once you educate teachers about One Health, that means that for their legacy of teaching, they're going to be talking about One Health to their students. So those are my thoughts. Take them or leave them. But again, I think that you are doing a phenomenal work in Ethiopia.
Thank you so much. The rest of few questions will be left from my friend. Aaron, you can continue.
Hello, Dr. Deborah.
Hi.
It was a great conversation we have been discussing, and I would like to say that you have been doing a great job, and you have been motivating and teaching the youngsters. So, and the success in One Health approach is up to the young ones. So, I just do have one question. We all know that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals developed by the UN, and I have been. Everybody knows that they are more related to the environment, humans, and life on Earth. Like especially the Goal 3, Goal 13, and 14 and 15, they are more related to the three wider hosts like the animals, environment, and humans. So my question is, in your opinion, can we humans achieve these goals in 2013 amidst the rapid increase in human population and the scarcity of resources in third world countries? And can this all be answered by One Health approach? Because we Ethiopians, we are seeing, or we Africans, we are seeing that there's no any interrelationship between multidisciplinary. So how can One Health approach can fulfill these goals by 2030? What do you think about that?
Right.
Thank you.
That question, and that's a really powerful question. It covers a lot. So if you don't mind, I'll break it up into little pieces, and if I miss something, please remind me. So number one, the question was, can we achieve the goals, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 of them, by the deadline? And I would say the best chance of us achieving these goals is by taking the One Health approach, is by just practicing teamwork. That's the only way, because it's not only unfair to say to one profession, okay, this is your responsibility, but it's not practical, right? So it's a mindset shift. And can we change mindsets throughout society in 5 years? Probably not. In, what are we now? 21 to 2021, so 9 years. That's even a stretch. But the thing is, we have to make sure that the key players, the people who can make the big decisions, like the politicians, for instance, we have to change just enough to change their minds. And when I say change their minds, it's not manipulation, it's education. It's 100% education. And the thing is, we could go to politicians, we can preach all we want. It's not going to change a mind if we preach at people. We have to understand where they're coming from. We have to understand their goals. We have to understand their priorities. What put them in office? What gave them that power? What do they value, right? What is their background? And so I mentioned the science communication book that I wrote up. It actually has an entire section about how to speak with lawmakers and how to speak with the offices of lawmakers. And it gives you practical tips with how to do this and how to bring your message to the right people. And I could write about this because for the last year I was working in the United States Congress. I was a fellow with AAAS, which is the American Association for the Advancement of Science. They're the ones who create the science journal. So if you know magazine, or if you know journals, it's Nature and there's Science. So these are the science people. And so they trained me how to work with politicians. And so I worked with politicians for a year, and I was, on that team, and I understand how those things work. But I'm also a scientist, and so I know both sides of the conversation quite well, and that's what's in the book, to help other scientists deliver their message. So communication is key, teamwork is key. The next part of your question was, how can we, if I'm understanding correctly, and please let me know if I'm getting it wrong, how can we start to approach various disciplines and really create a multidisciplinary team? Is that the second part of the question? Yeah, okay. It's a good question. And unless somebody in a typical situation, and we're talking about professionals and say the government, for instance, unless people take it upon themselves and use their spare hours in the day to go to One Health working groups, as we call them in the United States in the government, or they're just like clubs. They're just areas where we can talk about a subject. Unless they have their own passion for One Health, they're not going to go unless their boss tells them to go. The other way to do it is to start simple conversations. In my opinion, it all comes down to networking, and it all comes down to understanding what they want and what they value. Same thing with the politicians. But say, for instance, if I'm a veterinarian, and I am a veterinarian, if I'm speaking with a physician or a human doctor, and we're talking about cancer, for instance, we're talking about breast cancer, for instance, we can talk about how an oncologist in human medicine uses similar methods and similar treatments to a veterinary oncologist. And so instead of relying on lab animals alone to further medicine, we are trying to treat our own patients in real time, and we're learning from each other. So how can that influence a physician's or a human oncologist's patients? Well, because the etiology of some of these cancers are very similar and the medications are very similar, we can learn from each other to improve the health of our own patients. So ultimately, how to build an interdisciplinary team. The beautiful thing with One Health is that it's flexible. It is so big that you can tailor the message of One Health to meet the needs of whoever you're speaking with. And so it really comes down to your creativity and doing your homework and knowing the values of the other person and what they want to do in the future. So those are my 2 cents. Great question, though. Very good question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Deborah, for joining us in One Health Challenge 5. And the last question would be, what do you recommend or any advice for Ethiopian students who are in high school, at college, university, anywhere, So is there any message that you can deliver? That's my last question. Thank you very much again for joining us.
Thank you. My answer to that question is to stay curious. Curiosity is the only way we can advance the world in our knowledge, right? Don't let anybody say you can't do something. There have been so many times people have told me to give up. So many times I'd have to write a book this thick to go through how many times somebody told me to give up, because either it's pointless to teach children about One Health. Some people have told me, don't bother because there's no money in it. What? Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe that was said to me. Sure, there's not much grant money in it, but the whole point of teaching children about One Health is to change minds and to open their eyes, right? And to save this planet. So, my advice is stay curious. If you have a message, do everything you can to bring it out there and believe in yourself. So those are the 3 parts. Thanks for the question. And thanks so much for you. It's been so much.
I hope this will not be our final meeting, and we will have another one challenge. Maybe we will be there, or you can be our next guests. Thank you very much again for joining us. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.